This is The Moon Above Oak Road by David SCHÜTZ II. Frigid was the Wintersburg night. It was colder there than it was in St. Louis. Cities of concrete and steel hold at least a modicum of heat in their bones. Towns housed within the plains, with their empty, faded borders, do not. The stark, punishing winds of southern Illinois rocked the blue Chrysler as it departed Interstate 70 and merged onto Little Belt Road. February, as in the traditional nature of February, brought a bitter atmosphere onto the dark night, and subtle plumes of chimney smoke ascended in an opaque rapture toward the beckoning sky. Life, in both its grandeur and tedium, is fraught with change. Wintersburg is not. Klaus Streitner gently depressed the accelerator. When he was satisfied that the vehicle was travelling at the rate of the speed limit, so carefully designated by the appropriate committee, he relaxed the effort. He never exceeded them, for he was nothing if not an advocate of proper fuel efficiency, and his pastime could not abide getting pulled over for speeding. Police ask questions. Police could impede upon his charge. That, of course, he would not allow to happen. His perfect memory reminded him that once he passed State Route 9, he would see the familiar bent street sign bearing the curt inscription Oak Road after a distance of about 4 miles. Indeed, he did see that landmark, and upon reaching it he steered to his right and slowed. His shoulders tightened into unpleasant knots as the gravel lane grinded beneath his conveyance. He endured the vibration with frayed nerves for a minute or two before he passed the transparent husks of 3 houses that had, at one time, been quaint and simple, before they'd been burned to the cold ground several Christmas Eves ago. He continued onward for 1 more mile and slowly pulled into a rocky driveway on the lone standing house at the end of the road. The structure stood tall and looked like a decaying facade displayed centre stage and bathed in the white beams of the automobile's headlights. Klaus gazed at his ancient boyhood home. He switched off the ignition and the lights and exited the vehicle. Frozen brown grass lightly sounded its objections as he trod across its surface as, with key in hand, he approached the threshold. Upon reaching the door, Klaus paused and listened to the world about him. It offered no voice other than the rasping whistle of the ancient wind. That is good, he thought. He turned the key and the portal yielded. Klaus leaned forward and inhaled rather deeply. The air within the house bore notes more rank than it had during his previous visit. He stepped inside and reached to his right. His seeking fingers grasped the flashlight that he kept upon the small table beside the door, and with a mere flick of his thumb, the room was cleft with a blade of light. He swept the beam from side to side and, finding nothing amiss, aimed the light before himself and walked to the fireplace. He set the torch down beside the fireplace. He took a few steps to the left and retrieved some dust-laden wood from the kindling pile. Carefully, he placed pieces on the charred rack within the red brick alcove. He stood again and found the long wooden matchsticks within their box upon the mantel, withdrew one and scraped it across the surface of the bricks. Spark became flame as the matchstick ignited like a shooting star. He inhaled once more before setting it between the lowest logs. He returned his gaze to the mantel and took the small canister of lighting fluid from it. He aimed the spout toward the wood and lightly depressed the sides of the canister, releasing a clear, pungent arc of liquid onto the logs. A brilliant light roared to life. He returned the lighting fluid to the mantel and gazed about the interior around him. The living room was sparsely decorated. A plush, indigo high-backed chair flanked the fireplace. A frayed, woven carpet lay a bit askew, yet still centred upon the floor. Klaus strode across its tattered face as he exited the house. He left the front door ajar, crossed the lawn and returned to the car. The vehicle's trunk popped open with a resounding thunk as the key was turned within, its contents exposed to the shivering darkness above. He reached within its shadow's contours and removed the awaiting cargo, a prize that seemed to shimmer in the mid-western winter's bitter moonlight. He reverently draped the young dead girl's form over his right shoulder as he closed the trunk and walked back to the house. Once he had passed through the threshold and again occupied the living room, he glanced about the forgotten residence. The fire had doubled in breadth, offering a minute sunrise that illuminated its environs in a microcosmic dawn. There was a suggestion of warmth. He turned to the right and approached the dining table. Flickering shadows danced about the chamber. The dining table was oval in shape, encircled by 6 ornate chairs. 3 contained dark silhouettes. Upon his arrival, the visage of the inhabitants of 3 of the chairs became visible. A lovely, tall woman in a pretty white blouse, a demure, stately lady of perhaps 80 years, a young man, his hair a bit too long, wearing a sweatshirt that bore the insignia of an institution called Highland Senior High. All were exhibiting various stages of decay. Each body contained a distinct marking, a unifying brand that they all shared. A smooth scar which began beneath one corner of the jaw, descended in a brief, clean arc across the throat, in a semicircular path that concluded below the opposite side of the neck. The wounds were carefully, lovingly stitched closed, sewn with precision and pride, reminiscent of the seams adorning a baseball. Klaus carefully sat the young girl within the leftmost chair. He positioned her to respectfully face the others and gently swept her hair to one side. Her scar shone briefly in the nearby firelight. He smiled and looked upon the pleasing tableau displayed before him. "You're home!" Klaus started as the words formed behind him. He whirled around and beheld the breathtaking image that was Alicia. She, too, was beyond change, even after all this time. She looked as though she'd just left the market where she'd once worked, the market in which he'd first seen her. She used to sing faintly as she operated the cash register, day after day. She was, all at once, mesmerising and frightening. He had to have her. He had followed her one evening as she left for home. She was walking, singing, existing in a life that was simple and free. Klaus offered a ride in the blue Chrysler, but what she had accepted was more than a passage home to her small house in the city. It was a release from the bindings of life, the burden of years to come, and the privilege of wearing a lengthwise incision upon her supple neck. He had opened her throat to let the sweet song out, to bathe in its blithe notes. "Yes, dear Alicia, I've returned. I've brought her to you. Isn't she perfect? Isn't she fine?" "Indeed, thank you." She advanced toward the girl propped in the chair. When she moved, her legs did not. Upon reaching the child, Alicia gazed upon her and smiled. "She's very much like Hannah. She looked just like this, my little sister. See how she looks at the others, like they really are our family. Bobby, do sit up straight. Set a good example for our Hannah. Right, Mother? The woman in the white blouse stared silently at her, the empty caverns that once contained her eyes gaping in their eternal yawns. The woman had been the first one that Klaus sought, the ideal replacement mother for Alicia. 4 months after he'd buried Alicia in the backyard, Klaus returned to the old homestead in Wintersburg. She had spent the idle time walking in the confines of the house, exploring that dead manor that once held a family that was not her own. He sat in the plush chair beside the fireplace and marvelled at her translucent brilliance, her sheer, incomparable beauty. She told him of her fear. She told him of her lost dreams. She told him of the family that she missed, that she so dearly longed for. Over time, he had assembled a new one for her, to while away the hours and months with her between his visits. They were not those people that she grew up with, that she had adored and revered, but they were convenient and they sufficed. And they were all perfect. The perfect mother, brother, and grandmother. Tonight, the perfect sister returned home to Alicia. The family was nearly complete. "Oh, is she not beautiful, dear Alicia? Are they not all?" He found it difficult to contain his pride, his satisfaction in the successful pursuit of his charge. "They are, Klaus. You have chosen so well." "It is not only my honour, but my pleasure. They are lovely, all of them. Perfect. They cannot compare to you, Alicia, but I pray that they make you happy. I took them all. Of course, they had to be taken. Their purpose had to be realized, and now that has come to pass. They have found their destiny, the reason for their being. They are here. They are yours forever." "Forever is a long, long time, Klaus, but I fear they are not satisfied. They're not happy." Klaus staggered back a step. It was difficult for him to believe that these people were not content. He had laboured too hard, and he could not comprehend the possibility that they could be unsatisfied. He was forging the perfect family. For what reason would they not be cheerful? "I do not understand." "Silly Klaus, can you not see?" "Alas, I cannot. Have I displeased you, Alicia? Have you pains? Are they not together within the comfort of home? A fire alight to warm them? I took them from their small and insignificant lives and gave them their predestinate fates, as I did for you, dearest. You were too lovely for this cold world, so I plucked you from it and gave you life. I did so also to them, for you. Do they think that I failed? Dear God, do you, Alicia?" "No, my sweet Klaus, heavens, no. Then what could it be?" For the first time in recent memory, he was worried. "You've done so well. It's just that I wished for something more. We are incomplete. What do you require? You have but to speak it, and it is yours. The one who's still missing, the one who must sit at the head of the table, the man of the house, to lead us in life and home. Father. Indeed, of course, I will find him. It will not take long, my dear Alicia, I promise you. As I've told you, you've done so well. There's no need to seek, for Father's here." Klaus opened his mouth to speak, to inquire as to what she meant, but before he could utter a sound, he was struck silent by the ancient creaking of a nearby kitchen drawer. The faint orange glow of the fireplace sparked a gleam upon the surface of the knife which leapt from its sanctuary. As swift as it was silent, it soared across the place and into his unsuspecting hand. His will was not completely his own. His fingers wrapped themselves around the handle. His brain objected to the sudden foreign occupation of his raising arm, and he fought with all his might to stop the blade as it entered his neck. "You, dear Klaus, will play the part. Welcome home, father." The corpses seated about the table turned toward Klaus and smiled. Alicia drifted to him, her lips curved into a smile as lovely and haunting as the moon over Wintersburg, as she grabbed his wrist and pulled the blade across his throat. He sputtered and gasped as he staggered backward, his jerky gait only ceasing when it deposited him within the chair beside the fire. His eyes widened. His hands, once again his own, found the invading utensil and wrestled it from his spraying flesh. He flung it away, the effort sending the knife toward the mantel, where it found the canister of lighting fluid. The impact caused the canister to leap from its station and collide with the fireplace below. The cap became dislodged, and the contents quickly emerged, engulfing everything nearby in a rage of flame. The chair became an inferno. Klaus wheezed and halted as the world became a blinding star. The surprise and shock he felt was eclipsed by the overwhelming pain as his body was transformed into a furious torch. The last image he beheld was that of his dear Alicia, as she delicately pierced his open throat with a needle and thread. Her family stood and walked, advancing to wait by her side. The Wintersburg night sky became illuminated as the former Strider home became an earth-bound nova. The inconsiderate winds fed the starving flames as they reached towards the heavens like a martyr. The dawn brought a disquieting silence, and Oak Road endured, awaiting the promise of the coming spring. The end.